Now, one of the complaints or criticisms or objections, it's actually quite a standard objection, to the responses to this UGC rules from multiple sections of society, or even one section if you want. I think it's more than that. The objection is that this represents or expresses the anxiety of the upper caste, their resistance to change, and I suppose their desire to continue oppressing the scheduled caste tribes and other backward classes. Now, this is very standard, especially to Indians, because we've been hearing this for, I don't know, 5, 6, 7 decades, or even longer. And we have to understand what the issue is. See, the problem is, so let's assume, and which is the case in the arguments, that historically some groups, especially what we call the scheduled caste and scheduled tribes and other backward classes as today, have been socially, politically, economically, culturally, intellectually, ideologically, whatever you want to add, oppressed over millennia. Now, this is a standard story. Now, let's assume for a moment that it is true, that there is historical injustice that occurred. Now, you see, when you say that that has to be righted, that has to be set right, you face multiple sets of problems. The first, because it's historically unjust, let's say the system is tilted, I suppose one wants to re-tilt the system so the equilibrium comes, let's assume that. The point is, any re-tilting, even if you call it that, is basically to create injustices. I mean, if one kind of a tilt created injustice, then every re-tilt also creates injustice. Now, second, so therefore, to say that a re-tilting is required cannot defend any particular set of proposals, policies, or laws. But that's not the only thing. There's a second problem, which is, assume a set of laws, legislations. Question, does it really causally help justice? The so-called directive principles are not, as it is called, justiciable. That's, you can't go to the courts to challenge some set of legislation on the basis of the directive principles, which asks you to create justice and so on in society. In other words, any set of laws can be defined at any point in time as retilting as just and aimed towards justice. There is no way you can question, there's no way you can analyze, there's no way you can even steer a set of policies that they are unjust. This is the second problem. That means, in principle, everything can be defended. As a result, you get the other side also. Namely, any protest is always can be characterized as why the upper caste react, because they don't want it, they don't desire it, they are unjust. In other words, it is impossible in this way of thinking either to defend a policy as a just set of policies or to criticize a set of policies as unjust because you can randomly apply to anything. This is exactly what's happening. So, you criticize reservation, that's because you are the upper caste. That's because you are resisting change. You support it, then you can also say it's only supporting people who do not deserve it, who do not have the abilities, who cannot go through the normal processes of evaluation of competences, and so on. In other words, there's no way out. Each group simply attacking the other. That's where we are. UGC rules, exactly the same thing. So when you have policies which can take whichever direction you want to, depending on who is speaking, then you are not judging the effectiveness, the correctness, or even the morality of a set of legislations or principles. The question is, who shouts the loudest? So the louder you shout, the more just you are. That's where India is going, and that's been the story for the last 100 years or more. So today we see exactly the same thing. Any attempt, therefore, to build, in fact, I remember vaguely Amartya Sen saying something that you should not use past injustices as an argument. I don't know whether it's just one sentence in some interview. I don't know whether he developed it further. Problem is this is what he could be pointing out. This is a logical consequence. Anything can be justified, anything can be rejected. Look, when you make policies like this in a society where everything is justifiable, everything can be attacked, there's something wrong with this society. That society will not survive. It will break down, and that's what you see in India today. No matter what politicians tell you, India is, as a society, breaking down. This is the other aspect when you bring in time. And there's also connected to that a typical way of talking, namely, it is meant for the protection, either protection of minorities when it is about so-called religious freedom, or protecting the minority rights, or protecting, minority population. You see, a problem here lies not in the minority, but in protection. Now, suppose you want to protect something. That is, you are saying your action protects. Which action protects? Well, any action you feel like can be shown to be a protection. Every action protects. And every action creates problems. You can look at it that way. As a result, to say that you're doing something to protect somebody in general is basically a free license to do whatever you feel like. This is the foundation, amongst other things, of any authoritarianism, and that's the worst kind we can think of, is this idea of protection. Second, it is very empty. In the sense, assume, I am trying to protect jobs, I am trying to protect the economy, I am protecting the security, national security. When you ask, what does it consist of? See, when you want to protect something, the act of protection is different from what is protected. But here when you say, I want to protect the jobs, well, what does it mean? It means I don't want joblessness. Now, joblessness is the opposite of jobs, having jobs. So, simply using a negation, the opposite, as though it is a different state of affairs, different object, and you're trying to protect one against the other, is absolute nonsense. Semantic nonsense, and of course, socially it makes no sense at all. And that is why also the continuous attempts to use the word protection, because it covers everything. Whatever you feel like is covered by protection. Whatever you feel like is covered by justice. Now, these two, you put them together, the cocktail is worse than a nuclear bomb to a society, and that's exactly what all political parties, whether it's the Congress or the BJP, all organizations, the trades unions or the Rashtriya Swayamsevak Sangh, doing exactly that. Namely, whatever they feel like is the good thing. It's possible that these people are all, Vedavyasas, Valmikis, or even Aparavatar of Krishna, so that they know everything they do is protection and justice. It's possible, but you must see that this is very implausible. It's not possible just because you're a Sarsang Chalak or just because you're a general secretary of a party or an organization, you have the wisdom of, to use a biblical name, Solomon. You don't have it. So, this is where, this has got a very, very specific form in India, which I think we have picked up quite a bit, basically from the United States, maybe a bit from Europe, I'm not very sure about that, which is what I call moralizing talk. It's simply keep on wanting to assume a moral high ground, and you represent the pinnacle of moral virtues, and everybody else who's against you is at the bottom. So you are the moral, other is immoral. Nothing wrong with that. I mean, all evangelical preachers in the United States talk that way. A lot of religious people talk that way. It's not a problem. If you want to talk that way, go ahead. But here is the issue. If this is how you characterize problems, you cannot solve them. You cannot solve them because all you have are two groups, each accusing the other of immorality. So, you can't even identify the problem. What is the problem? How can we solve it? Simply say, injustice to the scheduled caste is a problem, and you cannot say what the injustice is. You cannot repair it. You cannot address it. You cannot solve it. So simply calling it injustice, upper caste domination, ideology of the Brahmins, look, it will give you jobs, I'm sure, in India today. It will give you promotions in India today. It will make you big in RSS, BJP, Congress today. Agreed? But it is absolutely damaging to society because you will not solve any problems. Because you can't solve it, you talk as though you're the embodiment of moral virtues. What you're going to do is generate hostility in the society. And if you are in India, you know this much. Last 70 years, hostility has increased in India. Communities face each other and fight. Not just upper caste, lower caste. You must go take a look at how the scheduled castes are talking about other groups within the scheduled caste. Okay, there are more than, hundred scheduled castes. Each wants the biggest pie of the cake and prevent the other from getting it. So they are fighting amongst each other. There is fight between women and the so-called general class. And what do these policies do? They feed it, reproduce it, strengthen it, accelerate it. Now, when a society is following this, producing hatred and enmity between groups in society, well, that society doesn't have a great deal of future. And that's exactly what the ruling parties, whether it's Congress or BJP, are doing. And the result is predictable. Increasing hostility, enmity, fed by this moralizing talk. Moralizing because it has no principles. If you ask, people are treated unjustly, and you ask what exactly would be a just treatment, you don't really have good answers to that. Why is it that some group getting maximum benefits is just? You have no answer to that. You say, that's because their great-great-great-great-great-great-grandfathers, according to the story I have, were what? Were treated unjustly. So, I mean, what exactly are you doing? How will getting a job today? How will getting a job how are you getting a position within the university in any way repair, solve the problem of 100 generations ago, 50 generations ago, 10 generations ago. It does not. Therefore, which means what? Those who are affected by injustice, if that is there is no reparation for them. I mean, your great-great-great-grandfather is not brought to life and injustice removed. No, somebody else is. Like, for example, you are supposed to, you meaning as an individual, somewhere in Kerala, for example, or somewhere in Bihar, you are supposed to be what? Responsible for injustice done by someone in Kashmir about 1,500 years ago to whom you are not related. You see, this is absurdity taken to the maximum. Your Himalaya is not big enough. The moon is not far enough to say how absurdly high this is. But this is the language. If it's only a language, it would not be a problem. These are the policies. There are financial rewards. And those who get these financial rewards want more of it. Now they want scheduled caste reservation. So far there has been resistance to the army. You see, it doesn't matter whether you learn to fight, become a soldier. No, it's a question of what caste certificate you have. So it doesn't matter whether you know the law or jurisprudence. No, it depends upon what caste certificate you have. So whether you can build a bridge, whether you can cure a disease, it's of no consequence, but what caste certificate you have. This moralizing talk, it has been my experience, like, for example, I'm an academic, so I've gone to any number of conferences. I met many American intellectuals. And they always used to, in conferences, in personal talks, say that we are not taking care of the scheduled caste, scheduled tribe people, and we are discriminating against them. So I have asked them, how many of these people are appointed in your universities? How many, because you are supposed to be defenders, so how many of them are tenured professors? And interesting is their response. There is no response. I turn my back and walk away. This is what I mean by typical American way of talking. Just want to attack me. But why is it they don't do it then? Why is it there are no big, well-known scientists and philosophers and so on in these American universities who belong to the reserved categories then? Why are they not appointed? So, and of course they say that affirmative action is different from a reservation when it suits them, but we use in India as though this reservation is affirmative action. Of course it's not, but who knows? I mean, who cares? So this moralizing way of talk, extremely damaging on the one hand to social cohesion, creates enmity and hostility and increases it, cannot address any problem of any kind, and only induces in people greed to get as much as possible for themselves. Now, if you're an Indian, you do understand that this is the most awful thing to cultivate in individual human beings, greed for oneself. I mean, if there's one thing that is un-Indian, it is that. And that is exactly what Congress, BJP, RSS are propagating, implementing, and the results, look at the price we are paying. Look what kind of education will your child get if those who teach do not know what they are teaching. Because I don't know anybody in India, whatever level, whatever social status, whatever social group, who does not want their child to be educated. They all want their children to be educated, everybody. They do their best. I mean, I know any number of people who work as housemaids and house servants in multiple houses to pay for the children's education. Now, I don't know anybody who doesn't want education for his child. or for their children. Now, that means what? That means they would like their children to be taught by those who know. They don't ask for who your father was, who your grandfather was. They want to know whether the teacher knows. So if you're adding more and more and more people who cannot teach, I'm not saying that people who have reservation cannot teach. Don't misunderstand me. I'm saying when that becomes the only thing, which is what it has become, education suffers. So now what the UGC rule, it wants to create Stasi regimes in the universities. You know what Stasi is? There was a secret police of East Germany. So they want now people in the universities to spy on each other, report on each other, and UGC rule has made it into criminally liable. That means make them into criminals. When you bring in that kind of system into education, just think what the consequences will be. Because those who will be in those places of punishment, trust me, you also know that, they will not be people who know law, who know jurisprudence, who are good at police work. No, they are the people who will exercise power to punish. This is what India is today. So, to bring in these kind of rules and to defend them, what is it? Is it the summum of ignorance, or is it the summum of justice? Well, it's for you to decide. But what it does is, it simply sustains a way of talking, making the other the bad person if you don't like that person, and shout from the rooftops. And of course, interesting thing about this is, you will pick a lot of benefits, material benefits. Think about it.